What's up, guys? Rick here with your preview for this week's Tour Championship, the final event of the PGA Tour season, but have no fear, the off season is very short. There is only 1 week off on the PGA Tour before they start up the fall portion of the schedule, and in that time, we're still going to have European Tour events, live golf events, Corn Ferry Tour event, like all that fun stuff. So we're going to continue to roll on here. Does not matter that this is the end of the season because we're starting up the next one basically immediately. A couple of notes out of the gate. First and foremost, our listener league this week, the link is in the description. If you want to head over to Splash and get your spot right now, that would be great. This is the largest guarantee we've had this year, and I'd love to be able to fill this so that we can keep the momentum going into the fall. The Tour Championship is one of my favorite events. There's a lot of data and strategy, so I'm going to show you a lot of different things this week, including, yes, I've brought back the Matrix again in 2024. The link for that and anything else that you might need will be in the description of this video or the podcast if you are listening to the audio version of the show. Firstly, we must talk about the venue. So this is Eastlake, a golf course that has been on the schedule as the Tour Championship for decades, and it historically has very sticky course history. Not only do you get a similar number of players who are playing it every year, but you get them playing it at the same time of year. It is 4 guaranteed rounds. You get a lot of good data and a lot of information on Eastlake. I will show you the course horses, but we're going to have to walk this back in just 1 second. If you look at RickRunGood.com, my website, giant database and tools for fantasy and golf betting, the best player at Eastlake in this field in a minimum of 8 rounds is Xander Schauffele. He's gaining about 2.05 strokes gained per round. It is significantly the best rate of anybody else. Rory McIlroy's played more rounds, and he's been very good as well, 1.35. Justin Thomas, 1.33. You can read here below, but Victor Hovland and Russell Henley round out the guys who are gaining at least a stroke per round at Eastlake with a minimum of 8 rounds. Here's the problem. They have done a significant amount of work on this golf course in the last year. In fact, they ripped it down to the bones, and there are no better way to show that than to show you the satellite imagery because you can see it. Look at this. They've got it completely shaved. They are recontouring bunkers. They added bunkers. There is just a lot going on here. So what happened? Again, they took this down to the bones. Okay, so it has been completely resurfaced, new grasses, basically throughout the golf course, but definitely on the fairways and greens. The fairways and greens have been recontoured. Just different undulations and things of that nature. It is actually playing as a par 71 this year instead of a par 70. They added about 150 yards to this golf course. So what do we do here, right? What do we do? Well, I think the good news is that it still is the same bones, right? It is still the same golf course in terms of hole directions. Dogleg lefts are still dogleg lefts. Lengths of holes are still generally the same. Shot shapes are still going to be rewarded in a similar manner. However, the experience that you might have earned over the years and understanding the way green contours work, green complexes work. You can see here they actually moved a green. So look at this. This is actually a really great example. So the software that I'm using is actually satelliting into the old green, or where the old green was here on number 6. It looks like they moved it, what is that, about 10 yards to the right? Oh, 40 yards to, well, that's kind of middle. Okay, so let's call it 40 yards middle to middle to the right, which is pretty significant, right? Makes that angle a little bit different. So the experience that golfers might have earned over the last couple of decades gets a little dialed down, right? Because someone like a Ludwig Oberg who's playing this golf course blind for the first time, well, now a lot of guys are going to feel like they're playing it blind for the first time. So as much as I still like putting an emphasis on the course history because it has been so sticky, it will not be as emphatic as it has been in previous years. And now, obviously, when we start getting the pressers and the interviews and guys talking about the golf course when they get into town and playing 9 holes on it, I'll hopefully have more information about how they feel that it's playing. But that will be available kind of more Wednesday on the live chat RickRunGood YouTube channel for that. So a very interesting situation. Historically, this is a golf course that has really rewarded accuracy. So there was a big discrepancy between the scoring average when you were playing out of the fairway and when you were missing the fairway. 18, the right side of 18 historically used to be one of the biggest misses, definitely on this golf course and in the game. If you miss on the right side of the fairway on 18, you were like 0.7 of a stroke worse or something like that. Some unbelievably huge penalty. And that's kind of what we've seen historically is if you're playing out of the short grass, you're going to have an opportunity to hit these greens. You're going to hit a lot of long shots in, but playing out of the short grass has been super key. Strokes gained putting has not been correlated to success. In fact, it's one of the lowest ranked courses. I think even more so now with the lack of maybe experience or knowledge on those greens. This is an accurate driver's paradise, and then guys who can hit their second shots. But I also like, the thinkers, and this is going to be unquantifiable. But Xander Schauffele, I don't think he hit a shot last week at altitude in his practice rounds without his launch monitor. And it's that type of commitment to preparation that I think is going to be really important here. So that might be a little bit more difficult to quantify, but we'll do our best as we get through this. And if that wasn't enough, we also have to talk about the format of this because it is a very different format. And I'm just going to share my screen here because our friends over at Underdog, they have this really great graphic. It's very easy to understand. So the 30 golfers are not all starting at even par. They have this staggered start. I believe this is the 5th or 6th year that they've been doing this. So Scottie Scheffler, because he enters the Tour Championship first in the FedEx Cup standings, he starts at 10 under par, with Xander Schauffele starting at 8 under, Hideki Matsuyama at 7 under, Keegan Bradley at 6, Ludwig Oberg at 5. Then they're bunched into groups of 5. So there's 5 guys who are going to start at 4 under, there's 5 guys who are going to start at 3 under, there's 5 guys who are going to start at 2 under, 5 at 1 under, and then 5 at even par. So that means Justin Thomas will tee off on Thursday morning 10 shots off the lead. We can argue until we're blue in the face about whether this is a good way to do it, but that's not what this show's about. This show is to figure out the best way to attack this week. So what you also have to realize is that before anybody hits a tee shot, they are already being credited with their finishing position on DraftKings. So that means Scottie Scheffler, when he hits his first tee shot, or maybe, before anybody hits a tee shot on Thursday morning, Scottie Scheffler is going to have 30 finishing position points because he has already slotted in for first place. He will not have the requisite birdies or eagles or pars or bogeys that would have earned him that spot. So you might see the finishing positions fluctuate quite a bit, and they will make up, at least early in the week, a little bit of a larger percentage of total points because guys won't have the hole by hole scores to go along with those finishing position points. And it will also create a situation where you're going to see pricing like you've never seen before, right? I mean, it's just huge exaggerations because guys are starting with finishing position points. And what that really means is that you're looking for big movers. Who's the guy from 1 under who is going to finish 5th, right? Who's going to move from T21 to 4th? Who's going to have the best raw scoring week? They will improve their... It's almost like, I think in maybe in NASCAR or in F1 fantasy, you kind of get points for what your starting position was and then what your finishing position was and what that gap is. So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the big movers here. And that is why a handful of years ago, I created this spreadsheet that I've been calling the Tour Championship Matrix. And I don't know why I call it that, but that's what I call it. It looks like this. And if you want access to this, you can have access to it because the link to download it is in the description. And I don't remember if I gave it away last year or the year before, but honestly, if you think this is valuable, RickRunGood.com is 10,000 times more valuable than this. So this is a spreadsheet that I have loaded in every golfer's stats into for a variety of different rounds, last 12 rounds, last 24, last 36, and last 100. I'm going to focus on last 36 for these purposes, but there are tabs at the bottom that will allow you to use the other time frames or the other round buckets. And what this does is it allows you to visually see likely outcomes and in turn unlikely outcomes. So this is up to date, up to the minute, right? I've loaded in the rounds from the BMW Championship and obviously before that. And it knows the variance of these golfers. So, if Scotty Scheffler, if every golfer in this field plays to their average, their 36 round average, every single golfer in this field, Scotty Scheffler is going to finish first. Xander Schauffele is going to finish second. Hideki Matsuyama is going to finish third. And then Adam Scott so this is using last 36, would finish fourth. Now that is him. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. I had him punched in that. Rory McIlroy would finish fourth. You can see I was already messing around with the data. Let me save over that. Rory McIlroy would finish fourth, which means he would pass, Cantlay, Ludwig, Keegan, because over 4 rounds, his average is good enough to pass those guys. So now we're dealing with the handicaps, right? The gross score, what they're starting at and what they're able to do. So in the past, I've pointed out that there are usually way fewer golfers who can actually win this tournament than the general public believes. And knock on wood, we've been very accurate and very right about that. I think the farthest comeback ever was Rory starting at 4 under and winning. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. He was either 4 or 5 under, I believe. And that year that was our line of demarcation. Rory McIlroy was the only golfer. I think it was 4 under because I remember saying these other guys at 4 under are the same amount of shots back, but they do not possess the upside that Rory McIlroy does to catch these guys. So that is how this matrix works, or that's the idea of it. And then what you're able to do is start changing the percentile finishes. So a 50 for everybody is an average week. I'm going to start moving these around and showing you different outcomes here and seeing how likely that they might be and getting a better understanding for who can actually win. So let's go through a couple here. Can Scotty Scheffler win? Of course he can. If every golfer plays to their average, Scotty will win. So that's an easy one. Can Xander win? Well, he has to make up 2 strokes. So what if he has, a 53rd percentile, 54th percentile result while everyone else is average? That gets Xander across the finish line. So that would be Xander gaining about 11 and a half strokes over the course of 4 rounds. Well, how likely is it that he does that? Well, let's see. He's done it, 11 and a half. He did it at the Open. He did it at the US Open. He did it at the PGA Championship. He did it at Wells Fargo. He did it at the Players Championship. He did it at the American Express. He did it at last year's Tour Championship, and he nearly did it about a little more than a half stroke fewer or too low in Memphis just 2 weeks ago. So yes, Xander can absolutely do that, right? I'm just trying to show you his golfer profile so that you get an idea of how likely it is that these golfers are gonna pull this off. Now, if Xander has a 60th percentile week and Scotty also has a 60th percentile week, well then Scotty still wins. Okay, but Scotty could conceivably have a 48th percentile week and still win because he's handed the 2 strokes and because his upside is so good. So again, there are literally infinite possibilities here, but I'm just trying to show you a couple of examples. Well, how does Hideki get to the top? Hideki needs a 65th percentile performance. No, that won't work. 70th. No, that won't work. 75th might work. Yeah, 72. 72. So that would be Hideki gaining 12 strokes to the field while everyone else has an average week. How often does Hideki? Now, Hideki's kind of a very high upside, very low downside type of guy. Well, he's gained 12 strokes to the field in each of the last 2 events that he has finished. That's the Memphis and the Olympics, and he was certainly on pace to do that at the BMW Championship, but withdrew after the first round. He already gained 5 that week, or last week. He did it at the US Open, and he did it at the Players Championship along with Riviera this year. So yes, certainly capable of Hideki doing that. So Hideki, yes, can win this. Can Keegan win this? So this is what's interesting. Keegan's really only had that one massive week last week that got him into 4th. If everybody played to their average this year, or the last 36 rounds, excuse me, Keegan would actually fall to 9th. Yeah, it hasn't been a great year for Keegan. So I imagine he is going to need a pretty big outlier performance to get to the top, and he would. This would require everyone else to play to their average. Again, that's the assumption I made for everyone. But he would need an 84th percentile performance, which is 13.8 strokes gained to the field. 13.8 is a lot. I'm not even sure he did that last week. He didn't. He gained 9.5 last week. Small field. 13. He did it at the Travelers last year. He did it at the Farmers in 2023. Those are the only 2 times he's done it since the start of 2023. The problem is this, like, you're going to have to gain that much on this field, very small field. That does not seem super likely. I would hate to rule out a guy who is fresh off a win, who is only 4 shots back, but that does not feel super likely to me. I won't go through every single one of these, but Ludwig can get there with probably, well, an 82nd percentile performance, which is him gaining 14. Yeah. Okay. So let's do Rory. I think Rory's kind of the interesting one. What does Rory need? Rory needs a, wow, 78th, 77th percentile result. So he needs a 15.5 strokes gained week. How, again, this is in a small field, but so they're a little bit off, or a little bit, different to look at, but 15.5. Well, did it at the US Open, did it in 2 Dubai events in January, did it at last year's US Open. He's been close a lot. But that is not, the last 36 does not treat Rory great. So that would be 77th percentile. If we go, I'm just really quickly, I just want to see. Yeah, his, if you go to 100 rounds, he would need 3/4 of a stroke less than he needs in the last 36. So what does that say? It means he's not playing as well compared to his 100 round baseline. Okay, I mean I can stop at any point and let you guys just mess around with this, but I'm obviously curious about it too, and I'll get to the cheat sheet and get to the field more in just 1 second. But I'm trying to get a feel for how many guys can win this. So I'm thinking it's Scotty, Xander, Hideki, definitely. Keegan, I will include. Hesitantly, I will include. He is 4. Ludwig is here at 5. That might be it. Morikawa would need an 83rd percentile performance, but again, if any one of the, then the problem starts to be that if any one of these guys ahead of him just has a slightly above average week, that's not enough for Colin to get there. And the idea that 5 guys are going to have a below average week and they're basically the 5 best guys doesn't make a lot of sense. I would hate to say there's only 5 guys that can win this, but that might be the case here. Rory, and I'd hate to rule Rory out because he's proven that he can do it. but I think we might be in 5-man territory here. The big five. The other part of this is if you think the winning score is going to be 18 under par, like there's just very little way for Matthew Pavone to get to 18 under. He would get there about 4% of the time. Okay, so to look at the bottom of this, just real quick before we move on, what would Justin Thomas need? Justin Thomas would probably need the tournament of his life. Yeah, I mean, he would need to gain something like 17 and a half strokes to the field, maybe 16 and a half, and have no other player in the field play to their average or above their average. So just incredibly unlikely. So, if Scotty plays to a slightly above average performance, JT would need to have basically the best 4 rounds of his life. So that's why a lot of these guys get boxed out. Now, is it possible for JT to go from 26th to 11th? Absolutely. So we'll start talking about those guys, but I'll save this and I'll put it in the description. You can download it and mess around with it, but it gives you a really good idea of who can actually win the golf tournament. Here's the cheat sheet at RickRunGood.com, and I am shook. Obviously, I was expecting much different salaries here. Scotty Scheffler's $12,200, Xander's $11,000, Hideki's $10,100. I had to go back and look at this. So I've got all the history in the Holy Grail. When we started this, 2019 with the staggered start, Justin Thomas was $15,500. 15.5. In 2020, DJ was 15.2. In 2021, it came down a little bit. Patrick Cantlay was 13,400. In 2020, that was 2021. 2022, Scotty was 13,600. And last year, Scotty was 13,400. So we have been coming down, but 12,200 is cheaper than he was last week at the BMW Championship. Am I missing something here? Has something changed that I've not picked up on? Are they not using the finishing position? Like, I went through and read the rules again. Doesn't seem like anything has changed. I'm very shook on what has happened here, but wow. Okay. Well, assuming that nothing has changed in the structure of this, you've got to be trying to jam Scotty and Xander into like every single lineup, right? What is the worst case scenario for Scotty Scheffler? He finishes like 3rd or 4th. I mean, like even if he has a horrible week, I'm very surprised by the pricing. I will try to move on. I will try to move on, but I'm very shocked at the pricing. Let's talk about the big 3 here. And the top of the board is full of question marks, by the way. So let's talk about this. Scotty Scheffler, $12,200 is going to start with a 2-shot lead here. Concerning stuff at the BMW Championship, indeed. Lost strokes tee to green for the first time in basically 2 years. Lost a ton on approach. Seemed frustrated. Seemed annoyed. I think it's been a long year for Scotty. I think that he hates the playoff system. He's lost strokes putting in 3 out of his last 4. Eastlake has also never really been a super great spot for him. I'll pull up his tour championship history here. Now you have to remember his finishing positions are inclusive of the strokes. So T6, T2, T22, and 5th. But remember, in the year that he finished 2nd there, what was that, 2021, he started the week in 1st. Okay, so you have to look at the strokes gain numbers. So he lost 4 strokes to the field last year and finished T6. He gained just 2.2 in a T2, lost 2.7. Then his best result, or his best actual week, he gained 7.6 in 2020. So that's kind of a long time ago. I think there's good reason to be a little bit concerned about Scotty Scheffler here, but the pricing has kind of really flipped my brain. I think it's very obvious that most people are going to roll Xander out here. Not only does he get the benefit of the pricing, $11,000, he is the king of Eastlake. Even if you dial that back a little bit, even if you take a half a stroke per round off of Xander at Eastlake, he is still the best player in Eastlake history, or at least in this field. And he seems to be surging while Scotty and maybe Rory and question marks around Hideki kind of seem to be going in a different direction, right? And you look at the results, he's not lost strokes to the field since Pebble Beach, and that was a weird three-round event that played on 3 different golf courses and got shortened, like very, very weird stuff. Xander seems to be surging. Again, I like the preparation out of Xander. I like the way that he goes about his business. No surprise there, but I think he's going to be ready to rock and roll. And then Hideki here, I'm going to assume that Hideki is going to be fine. We have seen him WD. So first off, he plays great last week. WDs, I think it was a situation where he had to like cool off on 18, sit and wait around for like 4 hours with a weather delay, get back out. That's not good for a guy who nurses a bad back. I think that the WD was very precautionary. Assuming we've got boots on the ground this week, we'll see how Hideki's doing, but I am not afraid to go right back to Hideki here when I think a lot of people will not. I mean, if you look at his last 9 rounds, he's finished 3rd at the Olympics. He won in Memphis, and he was 2nd after 1 round, gaining 5 strokes to the field at Castle Pines and doing it in very Hideki ways. So I'm not super worried about rolling Hideki back out there. I'm going to skip Ludwig for a second here and go to Rory, because this needs to be, we got to figure out Rory here. He's $9,600. What direction is he going in? It kind of feels like he's going in a perturbed kind of game, is maybe limping to the finish line a little bit. We've talked about this already a lot. Rory McIlroy has already played significantly more rounds through August than he has at any point in his career. And we still have 4 more to go. It has been a long year of golf, and it's starting to cool off a bit for Rory. I don't like to see the driver issues. The putter has been pretty nasty for the last handful of starts. And if we take, whatever you want to downgrade a course history, if we're going to take a half stroke off of Xander, which probably feels like a lot, you take the same off of Rory, still very good, but he's like a stroke per round player instead of a stroke and a half per round player. Ludwig is here at $9,900. Again, $100 cheaper than he was last week. Did they just like take last week's pricing and remove $100 from everybody? Is that what they did? I'm probably not telling you anything you don't already know about these guys at the top of the board. Ludwig can win this golf tournament. I do not like that he lost a stroke and a half on approach last week, but he had so many bad holes. I think he led the field in both birdies and eagles last week and obviously did not win. I think it is easier to clean up those, especially as we get now basically back down to sea level and what he's used to, than ask guys to go out and make more birdies and more eagles, right? So I think this is actually a very, very good spot to run out Ludwig. Now, let's just switch to the part where we need to find guys who are going to significantly outperform their starting position. That's what we're looking for here. There's a couple of different ways we could do this. We could look at the strokes gained trend, right? And we could say, okay, which guys are trending in the right direction? So last 36 rounds, which honestly might be too much at this point, you'll see there are 5 golfers who are gaining at least 0.7 of a stroke to their own 100 round baseline. Okay, that's good to know. Let's look at like the last 12 rounds. Maybe we need to go even more specific here. And the name that pops up, and actually the 2 names in this 8K range that pop up, I think make a lot of sense here. Sam Burns is $8,500 and Wyndham Clark is $8,100. Sam Burns is also similar to Ludwig, was especially last week, big time birdie maker, made too many bogeys, but still had a really great week. This is the combo you want to see. Gain 6 strokes with the putter, gain 2 or 3 on approach, and just be zeros everywhere else. This is a really good opportunity for Burns to jump up the board. And same goes for Wyndham Clark, who we have talked ad nauseum about, where he has, outside of like 5 rounds in his last 30, he's been awesome, right? Just truly awesome. Again, 4 water balls on Thursday kill his strokes gained approach numbers. He was actually basically a 0 player, if not a small positive, on the rest of the week if you get rid of Thursday. And I think there's a lot of good signs here for somebody who, and both this falls for Burns too. It's unmitigated aggression is what they should have, right? You're trying to make up ground on the field. You're going to start a handful of shots back, go out and see how much you can fire this thing up. The other one is Victor. All right. So Victor Hovland, who now drops to $8,300 in the salary, which again, are they considering the starting strokes or are they not considering the starting strokes? Victor's going to start at, I believe, 2 under par, maybe 3 under, 2 or 3 under par, is doing a couple of things really well here. This approach play, he picked up 5 in Memphis, 5.5 in Memphis, and another 5 at Castle Pines. That is very encouraging. He didn't drive it as well at Castle Pines, but he was just a small loser. We know that when it clicks for Vic, it's high upside stuff. Is he going to lose 5.5 strokes putting? Well, let's see how he's putted here in the past. And again, I understand new complexes, new grass, all that stuff. Last year, he gained 3.3 putting. The year before that, he was a small positive. And then going back 21 and 20, he was pretty bad on the surfaces. But there is at least enough evidence here to say he might gain 5 strokes on approach. He might gain 3 with the putter. And I'll just take anything else I get, I'll accept graciously. The $7,000 range here, there is evidence that Tony Finau could be on the verge of a breakout. He's in this upper left-hand quadrant, the optimal quadrant to be in, where it says, how is a golfer hitting it from tee to green, and compare that to his baseline of putting. Can he get back to his baseline of putting? And then if he can, how much juice can you squeeze out of it, essentially? That's the short version. But Tony Finau ranks very highly there. He's got some decent finishes, some okay finishes here at East Lake. He's got a handful of good starts coming in. I think it's fine. Maybe I'm more excited about Sungjae Im. If you go to, how do we want to do this? Let's go to the power rankings and look at the last 24 rounds for everybody in this field. Something like, maybe I should be going deeper than that. Sungjae Im's the 9th best player in this field. I'm sorry, he's the 7th best player in the field. He's gaining a stroke and a half. He's been better than Fleetwood, Cantlay, Lowry, Rye, Morikawa, Wyndham, like a lot of guys. And he made a run. He was one of the big movers here. Would that have been last year? Maybe 2 years ago, 2022. He was one of the big movers who flew up, outperformed his finishing position, and almost stole this thing away. I love that. He's been playing phenomenal golf. Outside of that, I think Billy Horschel's interesting. He's been playing great. I wish he hit a few more fairways. I wish he wasn't as reliant on the putter. But if we fire up Billy here, and Billy also has a real case to be made to be on this President's Cup team. In fact, he'd be on my President's Cup team. He's gained strokes on approach in 5 straight. He's gained strokes with the putter in 3 out of his last 4. He's been positive off the tee in all 4 of those. This is a very solid tee to green profile, and he does not look tired to me. He looks like he is sprinting through the finish line. The rest of this range, which I can't believe it only goes down to the 6,000s here. So you probably saw Taylor Pendrith's name pop up a lot. So Pendrith popped up on the trends tool. So he's playing a stroke over his baseline in the last 12. And actually it probably goes back farther than that. He has, as far as he's never played the Tour Championship. This is going to be his first trip to East Lake, which again, if there's ever a year for kind of experience and history to be mitigated a bit, it's this one right now. He also has a lot of incentive to play himself onto his President's Cup team. Finished 13th last week, the BMW Championship, and lost strokes ball striking, which is something he rarely does. And that goes with a 22nd in Memphis, back-to-back 5th place finishes before that. If I open it up to the last 16 rounds, you might get even better numbers from Pendrith, who's already very good. Yeah, he picks up like another third of a stroke per round to his own 100-round baseline in the last 16. So he's been even better in a little bit longer of a, or a little bit bigger of a sample size. So he's going to be kind of the obvious one here. Sepp Straka, I believe, if we go back to the Holy Grail, go to the course horses, if I lower this to a minimum of 8 rounds, you're going to see, I believe Straka pops his head up here. Yeah, so Straka's here, a stroke per round over 8 rounds at Eastlake. It's the smallest sample size, but I'll pull up his profile because the finishing positions I don't think are going to do it justice, because I think he's almost always started at even par, or he's always started pretty far down the board here. Yeah, so gained 4 strokes last year, stroke per round, amazing. And he gained 3.6 in 2022, nearly a stroke per round. Awesome. Like, go do that again. That's the path here. That's the path to him finishing, I don't know, T9, something like that, which would be very, very valuable in this situation. And also when he's playing well, plays out of the fairway a lot. And I think greens, fairways and greens this week are going to be pretty darn important. Anybody else here? Akshay, right? Akshay at $6,900. I do not think on my team he would be solidified onto the U.S. President's Cup team, but I do not think he has been solidified there. Akshay is surprisingly more accurate and hits more greens than you would think. He is going to model pretty poorly because he got smoked in Denver. He lost 11 strokes on approach. I will have to go back. This has to be multiple water balls a day. It has to be. It's going to be by far his worst approach week ever. Yeah, like double his worst approach. This is not going to happen again, right? This requires so many water balls, so much probably inability or confusion with the elevation numbers. I just don't care. And that is not his play. I think that's a pretty interesting buy low spot for Akshay. We're going to run a model here. Now the model, I actually like this because it's not going to, incorporate the starting strokes, which I think is good because we're looking for just the best plays anyway. I think we need to go really small here. Last 16 rounds, this is like we're sprinting. These guys have been playing a lot of golf. Let's just do the last 16 rounds. I'm going to do a baseline of strokes gained total at 25, and then I'm going to put 20 on accuracy, 10 on distance. I'm probably going to put a lot on approach. Let's call it 35 on approach in the last 24. And then I've only got 10 left. Do I care about putting? Do I care about around the green? Probably not. I do. But for this purpose, let's just say put our last 10 on Eastlake. And I think if this was not a week in which, or not a year in which they've done a huge restoration, this I would have put a lot more on. I would have put at least 15. Maybe I would have put 20 on Eastlake history. But with the current model, number 1 is Xander Schauffele. 2 is Scotty Scheffler, Tommy Fleetwood, Hideki, Billy Ho is 5. Cantlay, Finau, Henley, Adam Scott, Taylor Pendrith. Where's Rory McIlroy? 23rd out of a field of 30. Has not been good for Rory, and the small sample size really hurts him. That's very surprising. Ludwig's only 19th. I mean, he had basically three bad starts and then a good one. Wow. Okay. Well, we'll save it and we'll look at it on Wednesday, but this is a very interesting week. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of great conversation to be had at the live chat. I am looking forward to seeing you guys there, and best of luck this week.